I love getting things done, and Lord knows I love second brains. And I love building a second brain from scratch, which is the series that I'm continuing for y'all. Y'all, where am I from? Chicago, not Texas. And when we last left off, I was getting started in showing you how to build all the different databases of this second brain. And next we're gonna dive into the task database. So going into the databases page that we had before, we can go into the tasks DB second brain, and the style I'm going with this is it's gonna essentially have a due date, which is like when you're going to actually do it, so DO, and then a due date, which is when in theory it needs to be finished before the deadline of it is done. This system will also work great for recurring tasks and will have a very nice filter for you on the homepage. So we're going to go through the entire database setup as well as the homepage view that will keep you on top of your to-do list. So starting with the properties, we're going to change this type to a select property. It's going to be called type. Now, the different types of tasks that we have are ad hoc tasks, project tasks, recurring tasks, and then we have planning and review. What I then recommend that you do is possibly color these accordingly to all whatever specific color that you want. So I like to have like the different task ones just all put as like red, and then planning is a different color, and then review is a different color. And then we're gonna work and add a date property called due date, as well as another date property called due date, and assign to property, which will be a person property. And we're gonna call it assigned to. Now the reason for this is you might have multiple people in your team, and in general, when you delegate tasks, that's part of GTD, so we like to have that delegation part figured out. And then we're gonna put a little checkbox property. I like to call it status. It's up to your discretion. The reason I like status is just because I know whether it's done or not. Like checkbox, I don't know, it just feels too vague. And then a very important one for recurring tasks especially is gonna be created time. And then combining these two different date properties is gonna be done with a formula. And I'm gonna call it just date. So by adjusting this formula, we also can go here and change this icon to, we put in calendar, something like this one, or one of these, whatever your choice is, so that you know that like that formula is like a date property. And I just really like that update that Notion added. Going into the formula itself, what we're gonna wanna do is essentially make it so that if the created time is all that exists, then that's exactly what the date's gonna show. But if a due date is assigned, then we are going to make sure that that overrides it. So the formula then will be if empty, and then we're gonna pick the property due date equals true, then we're gonna pick the created time. And then if not, we're gonna pick the due date. So we're gonna wanna make sure that after this empty formula, we put a parentheses there. So what this is essentially saying is that if there's no due date, make sure the created time is what's used, and if not, use the due date. And in the structure of the dashboard view for getting things done, you're gonna understand exactly why I did that. Now we're gonna press done here. And then we have the structure of what we're gonna have for our tasks database. We also are going to add a relation to a couple different things. So areas is gonna be one. So we're gonna just have it connect to areas, and we can change this to tasks, and then areas here. We change this icon to what the layer looks like. Then a couple other ones that we're gonna relate it to are gonna be, if we go to the databases here, we're gonna connect it to the tags, the projects, the journal, and the meeting notes, as well as contacts. So we're just gonna connect it to a bunch of different databases, which will make a lot more sense later when we kind of make the contacts database and projects databases. So great way to get this to work is just rename, copy that, and go here and paste the name in. You can rename it to just projects and rename that to just tasks. And we can always change this to the icon that looks better. So we're gonna do journal, make sure always that it shows on both. I like to put journal log here. And the next thing we're gonna do is the three more. So we're gonna do contacts, database, second brain, XX, and just pick contacts and tasks, so silhouettes. Then we're gonna do the exact same thing for tags and meeting notes. So once again, you could always go back here and go to this, paste that out, and then change this to tags, tasks, and then change that. And then the last thing gonna be for the meeting notes. So meeting, actually I'm just gonna copy the name here because it's much easier because of how long it is. paste that out, meetings and notes, then tasks. It's all gonna be a lot better, by the way, once you end up getting to the end of the stage, because like things will already be built out from the back end to the views in the front. So now we kind of have everything we need. And I would recommend that if you go into one of these different tasks that you have, that you kind of hide out some of the properties. So I like to do show as minimal for a lot of these different ones here, just because it takes so much clutter up at the top. Then have the order of everything be the following. It's obviously completely up to you and your preference, but this is the vibes I go with. And then I even like to hide this one, and you'll see why later. So I'll hide this. Now we can get to the fun thing of actually having a view that does something for you and helps you be more productive. So we're gonna go and copy this link to view. Then we're gonna go out and go to your home page. And on this home page, we're gonna do /col2, paste this link out to create linked view of database, and then have it take up about 3/4-ish, 2/3 of the screen, and then hide this database title. And I'm gonna actually put this within a toggle, H3, and have the name of the first one be called Action Center. So this is essentially where you can take a look and see all the different tasks that you have to get done. And there'll also be other items that we put into there. So if I put Action Center in here, and then I'm gonna rename this and call this Actions, or you can put it Tasks as well, and change this icon to a checkbox. And the goal here is to make it as simple as possible when you're looking at it, but also as effective as possible too. So what I would recommend that you do is put the date property all the way over here, and then the different properties that you would show would be due date all the way on the right, so you can quickly override if need be. Assign to, so that you can have that showcase. The checkbox all the way over here, and then hide everything else except for projects. Now the reason for this is it's just gonna be so much easier to manage a few different properties from a viewpoint of like what you actually need to know, like what is the task associated to? Is it due to me? When does it need to get done? And the project side of it as well. And then from a sorting standpoint, we're gonna have it sort by the date property, so that formula, and ascending. So this is gonna mean that every task that you're gonna make, whatever is the latest task, so the task that was made farther away from the current time that you're at, is gonna show up at the top, because that means either it was made earlier and as a recurring task and you're kind of late on a recurring task, or you assigned it to like yesterday and for some reason it's not checked off. Or if you're on top of your to-do list, it is the most relevant thing you should get done rather than things that your due date is later. Now from a filter standpoint, and what's gonna make this very easy workflow-wise, is you're gonna add an advanced filter, and you're gonna do a create turn into group, and you're gonna go status is unchecked. So this is essentially a view that's gonna show you only the tasks that you haven't finished yet. Then you're gonna do and due date is on or before today. The reason for that is if things from the day previously you didn't finish, very important that those don't just disappear. So we add those. And then we're gonna do and or make another filter group. So turn into group. And then we're gonna pick the type is recurring task, and obviously like the other one, the status is unchecked so that we don't have anything that is from other days that is checked off showing up. Then we're gonna also do created time is on or before today, and the due date is empty. So what this is basically telling us is if we make a recurring task with an automation in Notion via the recurring task features. So if we made a quick example, so something like daily reports, have it set to recurring tasks, and there's an empty due date here, it's gonna still show up. So anything that's recurring is gonna show up, and then anything that you manually make that is a just general task like record this video will also show up. And then anytime these are checked off, they will disappear. Then we have two more views we wanna make. And what'll make this easier is if we just duplicate this, and we're gonna change this name to inbox. And this is essentially a section where we're gonna look and see what tasks don't have an assigned date at all, and they're just kind of a backlog of things that we think we need to get done. A great way to reorganize this is rename this to inbox, and then type inbox here or mail, and we should be able to pick this tray icon. Now the filter for this is going to be a little bit different. It's just gonna be one filter group, and we're gonna have status is unchecked, and the due date is empty, and the type is not a recurring task. So then anything that essentially just doesn't have a date assigned to it that isn't a recurring task, because recurring tasks aren't gonna automatically have one, because when you do a recurring template in Notion, it doesn't assign an actual date property, it just has the created time. We can easily in this workflow on our homepage add different tasks that we don't have anything assigned to it from a date standpoint. And then we can even put another view below this that does a similar mind shift exercise. So we're gonna duplicate the action center once again. And below that, we're going to slot in what we're gonna call the overdue section. Now the overdue section is gonna tell us exactly, so if we go tasks, it's gonna tell us exactly what we've kind of messed up on and like we're behind on. So the only things we need to change from this is to is before today, and then we can change this to a group and change it from just the due date to also the due date. So either it's overdue from when we said we're gonna do it, or it's overdue from when the deadline is. And then moving forward with that same concept, all we gotta change this is to is before today, and due date is empty from the recurring task standpoint. So then in a quick glance, this will show us, for example, say, buy mom flowers. We said we're gonna do it yesterday and we just haven't gotten to it yet. And that's ridiculous. You gotta get your mom flowers. So now you have a very nice section that shows, okay, what are all the things that you need to do? What are things that you can quickly put in here that we don't necessarily have an assigned date for yet? And then what do we have that is overdue? Obviously, we can see what's kind of overdue here, but it's harder to always at a glance understand what we're looking at. So it's nice to have a segmented section under it. And that's all you need to know for how to make tasks in the Building a Second Brain from scratch. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into projects, and then we're gonna keep building out this wonderful workspace for you. And if you wanna keep improving your productivity, you might wanna check out this video right here.